Apart from work, there is another thing that men ought to do. In the book of Luke 18 from 1, the Bible said, and he spoke a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always to pray and not to faint. I told you that these are the things that regulate the life of a believer. Everyone that calls himself a man must understand the necessity not just only to walk, but also what to pray. Every walk without prayer will lead to futility. Every man that subscribes to work and does not pray will enter labor very soon. Because according to scriptures, Jesus Christ said there was a woman. If you read that story of Luke very well, there was a woman that actually had an issue with an adversary. And there was a judge that was supposed to actually be like the God. Because whatever the judge say we stand in giving to court jurisdiction. The Bible said that judge does not fear God, he does not fear man. But that woman continued to disturb him. She continued. When he wake up in the morning, he see her in the door. In the evening, she's there. In the afternoon, she's there. When he's going to office, she's there. It amazes the man. He said, you know, I may not fear God, I may not fear man, but because this woman has insists and persists like this, I will grant unto her this. And the Bible now said that this parable was spoken that men ought always to pray. Do you realize that what she did was not prayer? But that was the typography and the template of how prayer should be done. You don't pray for 2 years and stop praying. You don't pray for 3 years and stop praying. You don't pray and stop praying. No, you continue to pray until you get the answer. I get what I'm saying now. But what she did, you can even say is work or labor. But scripture did not refer to that. What scripture referred to as is prayer. Is a lesson to learn on prayer. I have a lot of people that come and say, Apostle, I've been praying for the past 2 years and nothing has changed. I say 2 years is too small. If you read in scripture, no miracle in scripture that was done for just 2 years. A woman suffered with the issue of blood for how many years? 18 years. 12 years. You think 12 years is small? Somebody has been within the pool of Bethesda every day waiting. Every day for 30-something years. 30-something years. That may be the age you have not even up to yet. And he was still believing and hoping that he would receive miracle one day. That was why he's still always in the pool. If you calculate the transport that brings him to the pool every day, you will know that it's enough for him to start a business. That was why that parable was stated. That prayer is something you have to continue to do. As the Bible says, men ought always to pray and not to faint. He said, you pray without ceasing. If you are a man, one of the things that will ensure that you continue to have victorious living in this life is that you subscribe to prayer always. The same way you wake up every day to go to work, except they sack you from work. Do you know every day you go to work? Men work every day. Any day you don't come to work, if it is me that is your boss, I will sack you. Why? Because men ought always to work. The same way that you ought always to work, you ought always to pray also. Because these are the things that will grant you advantage upon the face of the earth. So when you come here and tell me that I prayed for 5 years, nothing has changed, I say add more 5 years again. If nothing, I say add another one again. As long as you live, you will continue to pray. There was no time that Jesus Christ summarized this is the end of prayer. No. Even while he said it's finished, he came back upon the face of the earth before he left and ascended. He prayed again. Oh, you don't know? So no matter how we do, we will continue to pray. So part of the requirement that a man can subscribe to at all times is to pray. Because when you don't pray, you're not a man. And so when we talk about man, it's not about whether you put trouser. No. There are some men that are women. They are wearing trouser, but yet they are women, because in the realm of the spirit they are wearing skirt. While there are some women, they may put skirt, but in the realm of the spirit they are men. They are decorated as generals in the army. In the times of Deborah, she is the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces. And that's a woman. And she doesn't have a bad marriage, mind you. So you must always understand That there's a prototype in scripture to answer to all your carnality and foolishness. The entire commander in army can never go to war until he come and seek counsel from a woman. That was a woman that walked. That was a woman that prayed. When you study her life very well, you will see a testimony of prayer. A testimony of work. Men ought always to pray according to scripture. If you must be a man, you must rise up and pray. You have 24 hours in a day. You may be faithful in giving God tithe. But do you know you have to give God tithe of prayers? That was the reason why Sabbath day is inclusive. Out of 7 days, you pick up one unto the Lord. Devoted unto the Lord. The Sabbath day is the day of prayer. The Sabbath day is the day you remain with the Lord. If you want to get more result, make every day Sabbath. And no matter how, you rest in the Lord. He said, this is the refreshing wherewith I will cause the weary to rest. With stammering tongues, with an unknown lips, I will speak unto these people. So at all times, you can be connected to high tension cable from heaven. At all times. So part of your greatest requirement is for you to pray. If you must survive. And that is why any man that does not subscribe to prayer, he will remain like a sealed book. You will be sealed with 7 seals. It will require a higher kind of sacrifice to unlock you. And sometimes it will be impressive to you that there will be nobody worthy to unlock you. Because the seal is highly sealed. So until the day you begin to rise to pray, then you now become worthy to unlock the seal. Then you begin to see the revelation in keeping to your life and what you ought to do. Men ought always to pray. One of the greatest things a man must do is also to always pray. It is good for you to walk, but you must pray. When you do not pray, you only walk, there will be a challenge. You will labor in futility. Another thing that man ought always to do according to scripture is that men ought always to worship. The book of John 4:20, the dialogue between Jesus and the Samaritan woman. He said, our fathers worship in this temple, and yes, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. And after she gave that reply, Jesus Christ answered her profoundly. If you realize everything that men ought to do were things that was solemnly demanded to reveal who men were to themselves. The woman do not know who she is. All through her life, she doesn't know who she is. Yet she was worshiping God. But Jesus Christ came to let her understand that her worship to God was wrong. At that time, he was trying to let her understand that God has moved. She's the only one that has not moved. But not only are the entire of their congregation have not moved. So she said that ye ought, you say that we must go to Jerusalem and worship. Because of that time, it is required that they have to worship from Jerusalem before God will hear them. So that was where come the division between them and the Samaritans. But Jesus let them know that actually they ought to always worship. But their worship is not supposed to be done in keeping to a location. It's supposed to be done in spirit and in truth. That every man that must strive in life must not just only pray, must not just only walk, must also be able to worship. The person leading a worship said something very profound that other time, and I picked it. Worship is the sum total of everything you do to God. Your work is worship. Your prayer is worship. Your coming to church is worship. Your singing is worship. Everything you do in spirit and truth is worship unto the Lord. So sometimes we say, let's come to church to worship. But when we come to church, what happened in church? There is preaching. There is singing. There is testimony. All of them are summation of worship. Men are supposed to give reference to God. The sum totality of the living of a man is to ensure that everything of himself gives expression to God. That everything you do is unto honor to God, unto reference to God. That is worship. So by the time you come here to sing a psalm, to sing a hymn, to do whatever you want to do, you must understand you are standing before the Lord, that the Lord is the one that will vet the things you do. And that is your own worship. So here, beloved, you offer yourself as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto the Lord, because that is your reasonable act of worship. So you came and began to talk about the need for you to offer yourself as a sacrifice, and they call that worship also. So it is required that every man must of necessity worship the Lord. Worship should be your culture. Worship should be your lifestyle at all times. If you must be victorious in life, relevant in heaven and on earth, you must understand the necessity for you to always continually worship the Lord. Many people do not see the need for that. They have to beg them to come to church. They have to beg them to see God as anything. You cannot be the Lord of yourself. It's impossible. No, you must worship something. And that is why if men do not worship God, they worship themselves. If they don't worship themselves, they worship an idol. Because men were never, these three things that I told you, men must do it. A man must work. If you are not working in keeping to righteousness, you are laboring. So you must labor. You must labor to survive. Go everywhere you see, up and down, is labor. Men must also pray. Whether I like it or not, it's either you pray now or you pray later. When scripture speak about prayer, it's not something that's an option for anybody. Say when you pray. Because every religion will have to pray. Whether Muslim, Hindu, whatever, you have to. Prayer is what you have to do as a human being. Do you know what I'm saying now?